What's going on, guys? Austin here, and in this video, we are going to be taking a look at Week 8's Overreaction Monday on a Tuesday. We're going to get started where we always do with Thursday Night Football. Brady and the Bucks drop a game 27-22 at home against the Ravens. Now, Brady this year is second in attempts per game. Should he seek to leave the Bucks at the end of the season? I believe that Tom Brady wanted to continue playing football this year. I think he tried to retire to save his marriage. Once he realized it was not savable, he came back to football because this is what he does. Now, unfortunately for him, I don't think he wanted to play football for the Bucks this year. I believe he wanted to be somewhere else, like the Dolphins. Now, the game, I wouldn't say it got a little out of hand, but I mean, the Ravens pretty much had full control after, the first half. And they tried establishing the run game early, but they didn't go back to it. I think Brady's throwing the football too much, and I don't believe he's still a good quarterback, but what he is accurate when he has time and when he has weapons. If a team is looking for a player that can, be that Jimmy Garoppolo type role, be that Jacoby Brissett type role, I think he could absolutely step into a contender that has everything set up for him. A crazy situation would be if he went to the Jets and, just started actually driving down the field and winning games instead of turning the football over. Should he seek to leave the Bucks? Yeah, absolutely. I think that with the slight lack of running game and the lack of interior offensive line, Brady needs everything perfect around him. And when he doesn't have that, he's done. Now, I don't think they're going to trade Brady at this trade deadline, and I don't think they should because they could still probably win the division, although I think the Saints are going to have it. But I think Brady's out of here, and I think he's playing for at least another year somewhere else. Now, the Broncos, they just barely get past the Jags in London. It was kind of a lucky win, but they ended up winning by 4. My question, is Trevor Lawrence a bust? Nobody's really asking this question because everyone tried to blame it on Urban Meyer last year, but now Doug Peterson comes in, and everything on the offense is great around Trevor Lawrence overall except him. The offensive line is one of the best in the league. The receiving core between Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, Marvin Jones, Evan Ingram, they've all been very good. Travis Etienne and, James Robinson, when he was on the team, very good in the running game. Overall, we're looking at great pieces for the Jags. The defense on the same thing. Defense has been fantastic for the Jags, and it just hasn't worked out. The reason I ask if he's a bust is because so many people have been dogging Zach Wilson, for not being a good quarterback. But if you look at the records, Trevor Lawrence is 5-20, Zach Wilson is 7-11. Trevor Lawrence completes 60%, Zach Wilson completes 55%. Trevor Lawrence is a 5.7 yards per attempt, Zach Wilson's 5.5. Trevor Lawrence has 22 touchdowns, 23 interceptions. Zach Wilson has 12 touchdowns to 16 interceptions. Trevor Lawrence only gets sacked 1.8 times a game, whereas Zach Wilson gets sacked 3 times a game. So, from every available metric, he looks like he's just as bad as Zach Wilson is, and they both have very good weapons around them. Is Trevor Lawrence a bust? I'm saying it is absolutely time to worry. I'm not going to guarantee it yet. Like, I wouldn't move off of him this offseason. But they might need to start thinking about a plan if he doesn't shape into form. The Lions, they scored 5 straight times against the Dolphins to start the game and then couldn't score again. Going into half, they were up 27-17, and they end up losing the game 31-27. Should Coach Campbell survive the season? Tua had 400 total yards with 3 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle went absolutely incandescent. Combining for about 300 yards and 2 touchdowns with 20 catches. On the other side, the offense was just as good as what we thought it was going to be. Jared Goff had 300 yards, a touchdown. Jamal Williams had his, 50 yards, 2 touchdowns. DeAndre Swift came back and he felt healthy. They just, kept him on a snap count, so that was good. And TJ Hawkinson, 3 receptions, 80 yards. He looks like, he might be on the trade block, today. We'll see what happens. But for some reason, yesterday, the Detroit Lions fired their defensive backs coach, Aubrey Pleasant, which to me, if there was anybody on the defensive coaching staff that would have survived, it would have been the DB coach. I think this is just a move to save the defensive coordinator, whose name escapes me right now, but he's awful at his job. Overall, should Campbell survive the season? I'm going to say it's time to worry. If they continue losing games this way, the answer is absolutely not. I just don't believe they're going to continue losing games in this type of fashion. Now, the Vikings beat the Cardinals 34-26. This one's less of a demanding question, but did we kind of forget that DeAndre Hopkins might be the best receiver in the league? Like in his 2 games, he's got like 260 yards and a touchdown, 12 receptions in one game, 10 receptions in the first. Like last year, he was kind of banged up towards the end of the season, and this year he started the season suspended. Obviously, it's not exactly sustainable, 140 yards a game or whatever it is, but what receivers are definitively better than DeAndre Hopkins? I'm going to say 0. Like there are guys that I think are up there, like Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Devontae Adams and Cooper Kupp and Tyreek Hill. Like there are a bunch of guys that are there. Nobody's definitively better than him. So I'm going to say it's time to worry. I don't think anybody's ever said that DeAndre Hopkins is absolutely the best, but he's got the best hands. He runs some clean routes. He's got, decent jump ball ability. He's physical, and he's got that dog in him. He's a 50-50 monster waiting to happen. The Saints, they shut out and they shut down the Raiders. They destroyed them 24-0. Are the Saints back on track? You kind of have to have ever been on the track to be back on track, and I guess they started the season 1-0. But are they back on track? Mostly defensively. They had 4 sacks, an interception, and obviously they shut out the Raiders. Shutouts don't really happen very often. Derek Carr had 101 passing yards. Josh Jacobs had 43 rushing yards. Overall, your 2 best, sources of offensive production, if you get held under 150 yards, that's an awful performance or a great defensive performance. I think the Saints might be boosting up Alvin Kamara's ability because they might be trading him today. We'll see what ends up happening. But overall, I think the Saints are absolutely in the race, and I believe that they will make the playoffs this year on the strength of their defense and their offensive versatility. So, yes, it is time to worry because the Saints are getting back on track. That should not be in there. Now, the 49ers, they forget those. The Patriots, they kind of creep by the Jets 27-17. The Jets, are they a quarterback away? They have running backs, they have tight ends, they have wide receivers, they've got a defense. But Zach Wilson, anytime he has to throw more than 17 times a game, is guaranteed to throw an interception. Now, part of this is going to be the Bill Belichick magic that he makes, and some of it's going to be, the other side of the football where, Zach Wilson is not a great quarterback. Now, I don't think there's a great offensive coach on this staff that is really going to be able to tap into him. But with the time to throw in the pocket and the weapons that he has overall, you have to be showing better efforts than what we've seen so far. The Jets are absolutely a quarterback away. If they had Geno Smith on this roster, they would for sure be one of the best teams in the AFC, which is weird to say. In a crazy way, if this team made a trade for Aaron Rodgers, I think they could end up being in the AFC Championship by the end of the year. Now, the Bills, they beat the Packers 27-17. My question is, did the Packers show anything with their 4th consecutive loss? The Packers are now, I believe, 3-5, which is not a great look through 8 weeks, but what I do want to show is Rodgers didn't have a terrible performance against the league's best defense, and Josh Allen didn't have a great showing against what the Packers have been having, which is an just completely underperforming defense. I believe the Packers kind of found out what they're supposed to do, and that's feed Aaron Jones because it works. Romeo Doubs is stepping up to be that number 1 receiver, especially with Allen Lazard out. I think Doubs should be the number 1 receiving option anyway. Both defenses had 2 sacks. The Packers had 2 interceptions. The Bills had 1 interception. They were very balanced. Both teams had 20 first downs, 21 for the Packers. They both averaged about the same amount of yards per play, 6.8 versus 6.3. The Packers were better on 3rd and 4th down. They were 6 for 14, while the Bills were 2 and 7, 2 out of 7. Now, the Packers have the number 1 passing defense in the NFL, and they allowed 216 passing yards. Not a great performance by the Bills. Now, the Bills, on the other hand, have the best run defense in the NFL, and they allowed 208 total rushing yards, which is not a great performance by the Bills. So did the Packers show anything in their 4th straight loss? I'm going to say it's time to worry. I think the Packers are getting back on track, and I think they have an incredibly high ceiling as soon as they start clicking. And then in Monday Night Football, the Browns, they cruise past the Bengals with a 35-13 victory. That's not 35. It should be 32-13, but that's not the point. With Watson coming back in Week 13, did the Browns, that are now 3-5, did they save their season? Jacoby Brissett, he's been having okay games. The defense has been letting up a lot of points, but they shut down the Bengals like they've been doing in the past. Amari Cooper had his 130 yards and a touchdown, and for some reason he threw an interception. The defense had 5 sacks and a pick. In their next 3 games, which are their 3 games without Watson, they have a bye and they have 3 games. They have at Miami, at Buffalo, and home against Tampa Bay. Now, the at Miami and at Buffalo, those ones are going to be tough to win. The at Miami game is going to be an absolute track meet. Bet the over. At Buffalo, that defense might be able to do enough to crush Jacoby Brissett's spirit. But home against Tampa Bay, they might be able to win that game. 4-7, it's not a terrible outlook considering how bleak the middle of the AFC has looked. Teams like the Jets that are way overachieving, it's going to kind of bring a damper on the Browns season. But with the head-to-head win over the Bengals, if they have that tied record at the end of the year, they might be able to make the playoffs. We'll see. But Deshaun Watson is going to come back Week 13 against the Texans. And so I'm not going to say it's a big deal, but I'm going to say it's not a big deal yet. And that right there is Overreaction Monday on a Tuesday. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Be sure to like and subscribe and stay up to date on all of our future content.